How everybody is your first day of the week. It is 3:55 p.m. on Sunday, my favorite day of the week, August 16, 2026. My name is Troy Torres. Welcome to the Sunday News Analysis. Sunday is the only day of the week. Saturday's my day off, but Sunday is the only day of the working week where I I'm not committed to the news analysis being in the morning or being at 8 a.m. And it's because on Sunday my my priority is church. So I had a busy church schedule this morning. So and I took a nap and all this different stuff, right? So anyway, here we are. And I hope you're excited as I am about this new week. I hope you see today the way I saw today and thought, what a beautiful day this is. What a beautiful, beautiful day in Guam and hopefully in Saipan, Tinian, and Rota, and wherever it is that you are. Thank you all so much for joining me on this live stream on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And those of you who will be watching the replay, I very much appreciate that. There are three things that I want to bring to you today. The first is probably the more urgent discussion that has been going on since last week. Not probably is. It is the most urgent discussion that's been going on since last week. And it has to do with this whole issue, another fire that everyone has to come to the rescue and put out because the Board of Education is doing, I don't know what. And the superintendent of education and her team, they started this fire. And this latest one is Teadston High School and Simon Sanchez High School. They can't learn right now. They can't be in class right now. The kids who don't have access to food because they're not in the school have to pick up or have their parents or whoever pick up or get dropped to them, and they don't have transportation. The grab to go meals because their campus has been closed down. And in case you're new to the discussion, these two schools are sharing a campus. Teadston High School has been located there since sometime after the lease that was signed between the government of Guam and the landlord Cortex sometime back in 2013 or 2014. Part of that lease was for the maintenance of the facility. We'll get to that in a second. Simon Sanchez High School does not have a home because the government of Guam since 2013 has failed to fulfill its promise to build Simon Sanchez High School. That's an ongoing thing, an ongoing drama. It's a drama that's stuck in the Department of Public Works because they refuse to move forward the process that's in place. They just have refused since November of last year to make this process move forward. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. So, since 2023, after Malwar, when Simon Sanchez High School was shut down because it just can't be used anymore, it's bad, right? The facility in Jigo, the decades-old facility in Jigo. Simon Sanchez High School has been, by and large, sharing a campus with John F. Kennedy High School. And that was working. It wasn't ideal or anything like that, right? It was definitely a burden on both school communities. But they had, one school had the campus from one time to one time, and the other school had the campus from one time to one time. So it wasn't like two student populations filling the hallways. And that's a relatively new facility. It's a much newer facility than Teadston High School. Now, Teadston High School has capacity, and I think we all thought that they were up to code because GDOE is not responsible for the maintenance over at the government of Guam is not responsible for the maintenance of Teadston High School, or so we kind of thought. And so when Judy Wampat, against the advice of people who are experienced with GDOE facilities, and much to the chagrin of everyone who was like, hey, how come you didn't consult us on this? She made a decision. This is how things have been done over the past several months since she's been the superintendent. And I feel like at this time, we're just like... It's like in one ear, out the other with the Board of Education, right? Because the Board of Education, by this point, has got to be absolutely tone deaf if they're not doing anything to hold their hire. This is their hire. Like, nobody hired Judy Wampat but the Guam Education Board. This is their fault. Like, we can talk about Judy Wampat being a bad manager till the cows come home, a bad superintendent who is out of touch and all that, but I mean, she's not the person who's going to fire herself. She's not going to be the person who holds herself accountable. That's the Guam Education Board, and they just haven't done it. So anyway, well, I talked about this issue. I was only supposed to intro this issue. We're going to talk about that issue just a bit. The second thing I want to bring to you is a clip from legislative session. So right now, the legislature is entertaining the second round of a budget bill. So they passed a budget bill. The big takeaway from that budget bill was the rollback of the BPT. The other big takeaway of that budget bill was the underfunding of very critical things. And so Governor Lulian Guerrero, she compromises with them. She's like, okay, I'm going to veto this, and I'm going to send the legislature a bill that raises the revenue projections. I think it's on corporate income taxes, if I'm not mistaken, in order to fund those critical things, and leaves the BPT at the rollback of 4%. Senator Chris Barnett, when this came up on the 13th of August, I believe that's on a Thursday, in the morning part of the session, he says, there's something going on here. Some deal was cut. I want to bring you that clip and what was said by the senators after him. And then the third thing that we're going to go over, and it's going to be, it's a recording that I did. It's an interview that I did on Friday. This is going to be the favorite part of today's show because it's all positive. And it is an interview I had with Anthony Cruz from Off the Spectrum, where he talks first about his son, Antonius, a 4-year-old boy who is on the autism spectrum. And in a 35-minute conversation, he educates us about what it's like to be a parent, a father of a boy with autism, and also what it is that we can do, those of us who don't understand, how we can be better citizens and more aware of these things, and also how we can help. And there's going to be a walk too that we can all participate in, virtually or even in person. And I'm very excited about this because, you know, there's a whole lot of negativity that happens, right? There's a whole lot of stupid things that happen in this island, in our islands. And it's nice when we are able to turn that into something positive, some sort of forward momentum that makes us better as a community, and gives us more pride and the sort of sense of community that we have. And that's exactly what Anthony Cruz was able to evoke, I think. And so we'll have that 35-minute interview, and that'll be the third part of this show. On the other side of the commercial break, we'll start with this discussion on Tietzen High School. Stick with us.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
That sandwich is really darn good. That's a big bacon classic over at Wendy's. I actually had my fill of Wendy's this morning after I served at 2 masses today. So the 6 a.m. mass and the 1 p.m. mass at my parish. And so after the 6 a.m. mass, first we went to the flea market because my boyfriend wanted to get taho. Do you guys know what that is? It's the tofu that's like sweet with the boba balls, and there was a line. It was a it was the longest. This was the most popular place in the flea market. So if you know, you know, I guess that one's for you, Jacob Nakamura. If you know, you know. So went there and then went to Wendy's because I was like, I want a morning milk panini. And then when we were approaching, I was like, I remembered they got chamorro sausage, eggs, and rice. And I was like, I want chamorro sausage, eggs, and rice. I had that. But now I want a big bacon classic. Anyway, so getting back to the show, my name is Troy Torres. It's 4:05 p.m. on Sunday, August 16, 2026. There are many ways I could start this discussion, but how I know I want to end it is with a letter from Chelsea Taga, who is a student at Tietzen High School, who I think her perspective is spot on. I think what she says sort of wraps up this whole discussion for everyone, and it's just sort of the mic drop that's necessary in this discussion. But here's where we are with things. Judy Wampat, she decided, she was like, we're going to move Simon Sanchez High School into the Teton High School campus. There are some buildings that I'm going to take over. And she says, I'm going to kick out JP Torres Success Academy. Matter of fact, we're going to close down JP Torres Success Academy. And we're going to use that as part of the facility for Teton High School. I know. Where is the education board? And why are they even accepting this, right? So people tell her, they're like, this bad idea. Bad idea, Dr. Wampat, Miss Wampat, or whatever. She doesn't listen. And anyway, she had made the decision already. She didn't collaborate with anyone. She didn't share this information in any public sort of way. There was no, let's get the input of the students or the faculty or the staff, or I don't even know if the principals were even included in the discussion, but she made the decision. And everyone after that told her, not a good idea. You should probably roll this back. She didn't listen. And so everyone was just sort of assuming, right? Like, there ain't no way she was going to make a decision like that and not make sure herself, like not walk those halls herself to make sure that that facility was prepared for the opening of school for both Teton High School and for Simon Sanchez High School, right? Like, what type of horrible leader or manager would you be if you caused this situation only to not make sure that things were ready? And then plus, also, we're talking about Teton High School, which has a maintenance agreement in the lease with Cortec, the owner. So I think all of us in the community were like, I mean, maybe, I guess, right? Like, maybe there's going to be some space issues, but I don't think anybody really thought that there would be restrooms that would be flooding. There would be termite-infested door jams that, like, they couldn't even be bothered to sweep up the shreddings from the termites. There would be door locking mechanisms hanging off of double steel doors. And then after the chaos happens, after public health comes and shuts down the facility, which shares a sanitary permit, so both schools have to be kicked out until the compliance issues are dealt with, the sanitary issues are dealt with to the objective satisfaction of the scores, right? Over at Division of Environmental Health. After all of that, we find out, not from DOE, not from the Guam Education Board, not from the legislature, not from Cortec, that these are not new issues for Teton High School. We find out from the students at Teton High School that they're the ones who are having to clean things up, and their school community is the one that has been having to make certain improvements or certain repairs or fixes, if you will, because nobody else was going to do it, because nobody was doing it. And I mean, it runs the gamut of concerns here, like about the transparency, or why are there gag orders? Like, why don't we know this information as the public? How is it that all of this is only coming to the forefront now? And so let's start with, so now you have the rundown of what's going on, right? Or what's been happening. Let's start with, there was a meeting that was called, and it was Friday morning. And it was a meeting that, it was the Guam Education Board Chairwoman, Dr. Judy Guthertz, who, let me go to it, stand by, because I was forwarded the text. She says, board members, the superintendent will be having a meeting at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. This was issued at Thursday night. At her office, Senator Borja will attend, plus Cortec and the school representatives, and Tim from GFT. I'm guessing that means Tim Fidenko, the president of GFT, with reps from Teton High School and Simon Sanchez High School. I also suggested Attorney General Moylan be present to ensure Cortec complied with its GovGuam Teton lease maintenance requirements. I will attend. Hope you can come to Judy Guthertz. Judy Guthertz is the chairwoman of the Guam Education Board. So there was a meeting that happened. And my very first, like, the very first, like, the bells that started ringing were, this is a public meeting. There are requirements. There are open government requirements. And if you're going to have an emergency meeting, there's a notice requirement that you send out on that day as well. Like, you cannot just have a meeting and then nobody knows about it. That's considered a closed door meeting. I asked Senator Borja, I said, I understand that there was a meeting. Can I have a copy of the recording? Because you're supposed to record these meetings. And he said, I don't know that there's any copy of any recording, but I have my notes. I'll give you my notes. I said, okay, I'm still waiting for the notes. How are any of us in the public supposed to know what was discussed by these high-level officials in this meeting? So what I understand from sources who were either in the meeting or reported to people, anyway. So from what I understand from sources, there was a blow-up that happened. And it was when Judy Guthertz started to blame, apparently, the Education Board chairwoman was blaming everybody else but the superintendent of education, and actually praised Judy Wonpat for her work. She wasn't even here when these things were happening because she wasn't here for the first day of school. She was on another off-island trip. I'm befuddled by the entire thing, right? Like, the board chairwoman's refusal to hold the one person that they're responsible for is the superintendent of education. And if they refuse to hold their one person accountable for all of this, then, my friends, we need to hold the Board of Education responsible for this entire mess up and all of the mess ups prior to it, because they're absolutely tone deaf. If this is true, that all she did was blame everybody else but the superintendent, and on top of that, praised her for her work. That's insane. But she started to go off, I'm told by sources, on Cortec and Cortec's responsibilities and how come they're not doing their work. And Ho Yun spoke up and said, excuse me, what did you say? And there was a verbal altercation that ensued. And very interesting. It's one of those things where, this is why we have open government requirements. This is why there are public notices that are required. They should have invited the media at the very least. But so that was part of what happened on Friday. I have some notes from some stuff sent to me by a very good source who agrees with me. If they're having this meeting, it obviously should be open to the public. It would be interesting to see if they try to deny access to the media. Thoughts on the meeting this morning between GDOE and Cortec? Though I obviously wasn't there, a major question that needs to be asked is, why wasn't this meeting conducted in February or March? Or at least when the decision to move Sanchez was made? I know that they are making a punch list and dividing responsibility between GDOE and Cortec, and that legal counsels need to get together to interpret the contracts. But why was this just done now? Why did it have to take a shutdown to prompt this communication and coordination? All of this is poor planning. If they knew these issues needed to be addressed and they knew that there were disagreements or a lack of clarity about who was responsible for what, why wasn't it addressed earlier? This is Wonpat's way of deflecting blame and trying to make the focus on Cortec. Yes, these issues may have been longstanding, and yes, these issues may be the reason for the facility not being ready, but why did we have to wait until now to bring this group together? Again, poor planning, lack of communication, no collaboration. Wonpat is going to keep trying to say there was nothing they or she could do and that it's all Cortec's fault. She won't take any responsibility, even though it's her and her team who weren't ready to address these issues in time. On another point, I heard her on the radio with Patty on some Wave 105. And she kept alluding to how this has been a long-standing issue with Cortec and that previous management and leadership didn't do anything all these years. This is her way of, again, deflecting blame and trying to push the narrative that this is not her or her team's fault. But the reality is, Tiedzen got a B last year under Swanson because they focused on making sure the school was ready to open. But Wanpat is the one who decided to put Sanchez at Tiedzen. Therefore, she and her team are responsible for getting it ready and making sure that all these issues were addressed. She can't keep trying to deflect blame for her poor leadership. I couldn't agree more with the source. And so there being multiple sides to, you know, they say there's two sides to there's multiple sides to every story. There being multiple sides to every story, right? There's another side, there's another angle to this entire issue because so Cortex is a very big company and they do a whole lot of work with the government of Guam. And the relationship between Cortex and GDOE regarding the Tiedzen campus is not the only relationship that Cortex has with GDOE. They also had, starting in the Swanson administration, it might have been even before that. It might have started with Francis Santos. I'm not entirely sure, but it was the bulk of it was in the Swanson administration. They began to have a contractual relationship with GDOE in the multi-millions. And it was, remember, all these ARPA funds in order to make school repairs over at GDOE. There was this punch list of stuff that all of these different schools, right? And so they contracted it out. GDOE, Cortex won the contract. And to make a long story short, there was an issue regarding the drawdown of ARPA funds, and it happened sometime in 2025. You guys remember this story where GDOE had to tell Cortex to stop working, and it had to do with the release of ARPA funds. So it wasn't a Cortex thing. So the contractor wrote, but Cortex wrote back, and they're like, hey, if you, because it was just like stop working like now. So Cortex was like, actually, there's things that need to be done. Like you cannot just stop working. You have to make the site. You have to take the stuff down, like the scaffolding, the equipment. You have to remove everything. It takes time to do that stuff. Otherwise, you're going to have an active construction site where kids are passing by. It's an entire like safety issue, right? You cannot just stop working on one day and then leave everything there. There are costs associated. And so Cortex is like, look, there's costs associated with breaking this down. There's also time needed. And also, if you do this, we're going to be able to exercise the portion of our contract that, you know how like the government of Guam has a liquidated damages portion if you don't do the work by a certain time. The contractor also has a portion in the contract that allows them the damages in the event that you cut something short unexpectedly. So Cortex is like, there's going to be this cost, and this cost. So a few days later, GDOE comes back and they're like, hey, there's no more suspension of this. We can move forward. Matter of fact, on top of the change orders that we had a couple months ago, which doubled up the work, there's also these new change orders that we need you guys to do. And yeah, we're going to take care of all that stuff we owe you from the time that we told you to stop working and it caused all of these additional costs. Anyway, make a long story short, all those things, that unilateral change order number 1 that doubled up the work, and then all the stuff that was associated with the suspension, plus the change orders that happened after that, amounted to $20 million in additional work, more than $20 million in additional work that Cortex billed, and has never been paid for. The legislature earlier this year passed a $51 million appropriation, and a portion of that was supposed to be used to pay down the debt that GDOE has to Cortex. Judy Wanpat has decided that she was only going to pay down $800-some thousand of that debt and not the rest of it. Cortex can defend itself, and you know, we have been critics of the whole Cortex Simon Sanchez High School rebuild construction thing, right? But when you look at this issue, let's never mind those other issues for a second. When you look at this issue, this company, they did the work. Like they did all of this work. They were told by GDOE that they would get paid. There's all this stuff in writing. There's these change orders and all this different stuff. The authorization was made by the legislature and everything for this money to be expended because there were some procurement issues that the GDOE people did wrong. And I don't know, I have to imagine the Attorney General will be looking into some of this stuff and trying to determine who during the Swanson administration did all that stuff wrong, right? But the fact remains that this company did this work. And Judy Wampat has just decided that she was only going to pay them a fraction. So this is another part of this story. So when Judy Guthertz comes out and starts lambasting Cortec for its responsibilities at Teason, which it has, I don't think a reasonable person would shirk from would cover their eyes and say that Cortec didn't have responsibilities. Cortec absolutely had responsibilities for routine maintenance under that lease. But when you put it together with, this is the same vendor, Cortec vendor being GDOE, that owes Cortec $20 million and is refusing to pay, I mean, things sort of come into perspective here, right? So that's another side of the story. But here's the part of the story that I appreciate the most, and the one that resonates the most with me. And it's not the billionaires at Cortec. It's not the anyone on the Guam Education Board or the Department of Education leadership. It's not even the principal of Simon Sanchez or the principal of Teason High School or any of the faculty members. It's a student at Teason High School, who I think, in her op-ed, in her opinion that she submitted to Kandit that we published today, really brought the issues together and gave us what it is that we need to be focused on here. And let me read it to you, okay? The Guam Department of Education has once again failed its most important constituents, its students, the future of Guam. The news about the closure of Teason and Simon Sanchez High School's shared campus is a shock to all, but the circumstances of the closure are all too familiar to students of both schools. It's been 2 days since the news broke, and Cortec has finally sent a work crew to our campus, but a long overdue and warranted apology is still pending. While teachers and administrators are scrambling to create solutions to bridge some of the learning that will be lost in the uncertain weeks, GDOE top brass remains mum. We deserve better than this. So when the Guam Department of Education fails to do their job properly and does not take proper measures to ensure that a campus is safe before opening for a combined student population of over 2,000, we are not shocked. One can even say that we were almost expecting it. For years, the students of Teason High School have spent their days on a campus that had multiple issues: leaking air conditioning, broken ceiling tiles, cracked windows, weak plumbing, and unreliable electricity was the norm for many, many Titans. In spite of all this, we persisted as we always had and made our imperfect campus a perfect home where we thrived and achieved our dreams. But thriving doesn't mean we should be blind to our school's deficiencies. Our Titans, and now Sharks as well, deserve a learning environment devoid of the possibility of closure, and where all students are able to utilize the campus facilities to its fullest. Despite the extreme lack of support, the faculty and staff of Teason High School were forced to take on responsibilities that should have fallen to Cortec. Why didn't we know about this? Can I just hold on 1 second? Why didn't we know? Why didn't DOE and the Board of Education tell us about this? Why are we finding out about this from a student? Let me just continue. They worked countless long, exhausting days to prepare and organize a facility meant to accommodate more than 1,000 additional students, on top of Teason High School's existing population. The burden placed on the Teason High community was immense, but as our administration has said time and again, welcome to Teason High School. We work miracles here. But schools should not be expected to count on divine intervention. They should be able to count on their superintendent and her team to ensure that operations are in place and facilities are ready. However, the decision to split a campus that inevitably was not ready to house over 2,000 students and staff was made with a lack of input from the school's stakeholders who have to study, work, and actually deal with the outcomes of their ill-advised decisions. Maybe it was also divine intervention that brought our shark brethren into our campus, because only now has the poor conditions of our facilities been given even a glance, and our campus stewards finally held accountable for their negligence. These huge maintenance issues now plastered over social media should not be used to blame the THS faculty, staff, or students, but instead should be a pure reflection of the neglect our school has endured for years. Our pleas to update our facilities had been pushed away. Our voices had been silenced. Our needs had been overlooked. Ironically enough, the same company that has woefully neglected their duties is also vying to build the Sharks' new home, and with a hefty price tag. Let that sink in. Cortec, who has failed to maintain our Teadsden campus, wants to rebuild Simon Sanchez. It is disheartening to see Sanchez experiencing the same struggles Teadsden has been going through for years. If they cannot be promised a permanent campus, at least provide a temporary, comforting solution to the problem. The Shark community has been forced countless times to adjust, but yet people like to say they are ungrateful or complain too much when they just want a home. This puts a strain not only on the students who simply want an education, but the faculty and staff who deserve a stable work environment. Avoidance is not a solution, so us students will continue to speak up and voice our opinions even when the odds are stacked. Always, it seems, against us. That's Chelsea Taga, a student at Teadsden High School. And what a smart woman. Whoever, Chelsea Taga, whoever you are, God bless you. Thank you so much for your perspective, which I have learned from, and I'm sure many other people have learned from. You know, the comments about the Sharks complaining are few and far between. I wouldn't worry about people who say things like that. They're just pray for them. They're obviously lacking some sort of mental faculties, right? Like that there's something that's not right with how they're thinking. But that's not the majority, Chelsea. The majority of us, the vast majority of us, understand that Simon Sanchez High School needs permanent home. Matter of fact, this is at the root of the issue here. Is all of these issues are compounded because the government of Guam has failed to deliver Simon Sanchez High School. Remember last year in November, I have the picture somewhere here. Governor Lulian Guerrero, Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio, in their rush, right, to award Cortec a $500 million freaking like they wanted us, the people of Guam, to pay Cortec $500 million to build one school facility on built on a procurement that is scandalous, to state the least, right? And they were rushing this thing through so that I guess they could get the headline, because they had these billboards that were built that said, promise delivered or promise fulfilled or whatever. Simon Sanchez High School is going to be built. Another empty promise. When we come back from the other side of the commercial break, I want to bring you a scrutiny that Senator Chris Barnett had about the governor and the Republican majority in his allegation that some sort of deal was struck between Adelup and the Republican majority regarding the BPT. We will talk about that on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us. And now all I want is an extravaganza pizza at Domino's. Welcome back to the show. It's now 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, August 16, 2026. I actually don't know where the legislature is with this now. I don't think they voted on it yet. So yesterday's my day off. I did the yard. I took my day off. I hardly did any work. And just sort of I have a lot of catching up to do in terms of writing stories. Like today, I'll be writing a story about a one-to-one AIDS, and I'll be writing another story about GRTA being used as a political dumping ground by the current administration. But I need to catch up on what's been going on at the legislature. They've been in special session entertaining a bill from the governor. It's the second go about with the budget. She vetoed the first budget, and she sent down a bill that's a compromise. And the compromise is she's keeping the BPT at 4% as the Republicans want. And this is a reversal in her policy for the past 8 years. For the past 8 years, the governor has been very clear that she never wants the BPT to go below the 5%, except for, to be clear, Governor Leon Guerrero brought us, and the Democratic majority back then, brought the lowest tax rate in BPT that we've ever had. They brought a 3% tax rate, and it applies to like 90% of the businesses of this island, because more than 90% of the businesses of this island are small businesses. And so small businesses, we're paying at a lower tax rate. But it's for the bigger businesses where there's this fight. And Governor Leon Guerrero, for the past 8 years, she's been like, keep it at 5%. The Republicans are like, let's roll it back to 4%. And some of the Democrats, actually most of the Democrats, actually all of the Democrats have been in Governor Leon Guerrero's corner when it comes to the BPT. And until this week, Governor Leon Guerrero, she sent down that bill and she's like, okay, you can have your 4%, but we're going to fund these other things. And what's his name? Senator Chris Barnett, he's like, wait a minute, where did this come from? And was there a deal that was cut between Adelup and the Republican majority? Let's take a listen to this. By the way, there might be something wonky with the system that I use that puts it on the screen. I'm not very good with technology. That puts it on the screen, so you might have to bear with me as I go back and forth if something like that happens, okay? But let's just... Oh, yeah, see, it happened. Hold on. Let me just... I gotta... Okay, stand by. There we go. Okay. And...
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time, and thank you again, panel.
You're welcome, Senator Guntauto. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, Manana Sidus to the people of Guam. Thank you for following along on our YouTube channel, and good morning again to the panel. It's so good to have you here. Not really much on questions, but I just did want to offer some commentary just based on yesterday's proceedings. And I find it a little bit ironic that some of my colleagues in the majority are now worried about the status of the reserves and whether there's going to be adequate funding moving forward. When we find ourselves asking questions like, do we have to give DOC $5 million for a new prison? When we find ourselves asking questions like, do we really need to fund fully the police cycles, the customs cycles, the corrections officers' cycles? I don't think those are the right questions. I think the real question is, why are we asking those questions? And again, we're asking those questions because of the reduction in the business privilege tax. And I can't express enough my disappointment in this special session bill that's come down from the governor. As again, it appears there's been a giant policy shift after spending the last 2 fiscal years arguing against the business privilege tax rollback. It appears the governor has either caved or cut a deal. And I think both are unacceptable to the people of Guam. You know, as we discussed the balance of the excess revenues and the impact of the delay of the property tax, we closed yesterday's proceedings. And it was kind of funny because every time we asked how much balance would be of the excess revenues, we kind of got a different answer. I asked once and the answer was 20, then you said 22 million, and then Senator Taga, I think, rightfully pointed out that when we factor in things that we've funded with the delayed property tax, that we could be looking at an excess revenue balance of just $4 million when all of this is said and done. Because what's happening is the governor has raised the corporate withholding level. She's caved on the BPT, and the budget has a 4% BPT. And so she's funded a lot of the things that we were raising in the previous budget sessions, you know, the autism programs, the mobile suicide response team, the different shortfalls with public health. But again, I have to go back to these funding levels. We're not considering that many of these programs, to include the autism programs and a lot of these social services from public health, these are programs that, according to the directors and the agencies, are probably in need of expansion. These are programs where we have a wait list. So these funding levels are by no means improving the services, improving access to services. All of this is just dressed up as another status quo budget bill. And again, I don't think the people of Guam want status quo. They want improvements. And so it's very disappointing that this is how the governor is ending her legacy. Ending her legacy with this bill that she sent down that not only shortchanges, again, essential services by funding them at a status quo level, by caving on the 4% BPT. And so all of these things that we're funding with the excess revenues, we're going to have to fund them again next year with the excess revenues. And because we took $40 million off the top for the BPT rollback in the last fiscal year and another $40 million this fiscal year, that's $80 million up in smoke, disappeared into thin air. Those are critical government revenues that we could use to improve services for the people of Guam, not to remain in the status quo. These are critical government revenues that I'm sure my colleagues would love to use to make transformational changes for the people of Guam. Not to, this bill, we're barely getting by. We're barely meeting the obligations. Because again, the priority was to give the biggest of the big businesses the BPT rollback. And so I'm not sure how this is sustainable moving forward. It's not sustainable moving forward. It's not. And I don't care how big the Chamber of Commerce is making you guys' dogging. This BPT rollback, we're already seeing the impact to services. Take a look around you. Trickle-down economics. It's more like a drip, 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 because we're not seeing the trickle-down economics. And the big businesses were very clear when you guys rammed this BPT rollback through. They were honest. They said it's not going to lead to higher wages for our people, and they said it's not going to lead to lower costs at the cash register. That's absolutely true. The people of Guam have seen little to no relief from this business privilege tax rollback. And now we want to continue with the other 0.5% in cahoots with the governor to give it just for the sake of giving it. You didn't come up with a strategic plan, how these agencies are going to deal with the reduced revenues, the reduced $80 million in revenues. And the chamber continues to bang the gong. And they continue to be honest about what a 4% BPT means. The revised budget should also preserve the return to a 4% BPT. A lower BPT can ease pressure on operating costs, help businesses retain employees, support investment, and improve Guam's competitiveness. Nothing about lower costs for our working families, nothing about higher wages for our working families. And it's only going to get worse should we proceed with rolling back the BPT to 4%. So I don't know what deal was made here. Maybe the deal was hands off the hospital in Manila. Because now it looks like the majority wants to rush through this bill. They don't want to look at it chapter by chapter. And you have to wonder why. Well, we know why, because they're getting the 4% BPT. But at what cost? I think the cost is very clear. The cost is we're not going to help our grassroots families pay for the cost of living. This 4% BPT does nothing to make owning a home affordable or realistic for our working families. It's like a bonsai mission. It's like a bonsai mission because surely the cost of proceeding and wiping these revenues off the table and status quoing and underfunding programs and services for the people of Guam, it's going to cost some seats in this House. So let's not get too comfortable in our chairs, because I think the people of Guam spoke very clearly in the primary election, and in case some of us didn't get the message in here, I'm pretty sure they're going to say it again, louder for those in the back. Now, with so little revenues left on the table, what does it mean? It means we can't assist our people with different programs. We can't provide power credits, not just this fiscal year, but even next fiscal year. You know, all the experts say in their wisdom that we're heading towards a cliff. And so these revenues that we're seeing from the military buildup, these excess revenues in the hundreds, the millions of dollars, those are going to fade. But this body is proceeding with the pedal to the metal to give a full 1% BPT just for the sake of giving it. And I'm worried that we're going to speed right off that cliff in a couple years. And we will have little to no cushion for our people, little to no revenues to provide assistance to the ones who really need it. The big businesses already got a 0.5% BPT. It's reasonable, and everyone I talk to out in the community, the voters, think that that's the compromise, the 0.5%. So I just wanted to put my thoughts on that. Again, it's very disappointing that this is the governor's legacy, a lame duck power grab of GDOE finances. I mean, the only entity that has worse audit findings than GDOE is the executive branch. A lame duck attempt to circumvent legal reviews. I mean, by increasing tenfold the threshold that requires AG review. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to provide these comments on the record.
Sure, you can respond. Mr. Carlson.
The decision by the governor was not taken lightly. I will remind everybody here that this is the policy-making branch of the government of Guam. If you're unable to get consensus from your colleagues to be able to take a position,
Mr. Carlson, just respectfully, I didn't ask a question. I know, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond, but
I asked for the floor.
I anticipated.
I asked for the floor.
I anticipated that you would say this.
You are the policymaker.
I understand.
If you can't get consensus, then don't be singing to me. You should be singing to yourself.
Mr. Carlson, the bill passed 8-7. If
you were so
any
close.
governor would look at that and maybe think that, okay, maybe there's a chance we can pass something with the 4.5%. But yeah, I didn't ask a question, Mr. Chair, so appreciate the time again.
Sure. I gave him an opportunity to respond. Senator Chulai, you recognize.
Thank you. When we were talking about the last budget bill, we talked about the retention pay for police officers. Does this bill include adequate funds to fund the retention pay?
Senator, we believe it is factored into their overall budget. We recall that it was like a 2-year pilot program to see whether or not it worked, but I don't know how many we actually paid out, but I think the retention period and then the bonus, for lack of a better word, I think we're coming up to that point where people are actually hitting the mark. But I believe that the budget is sufficient.
All right, so yeah, that was my next question. Has anyone been paid?
Yes.
Okay. And so they were to be paid on, okay, that's fine. And then the last increase for law enforcement was by executive order in 2022. And you had told us in one of the public hearings that you were reviewing teacher salaries at law enforcement again. What is the status of the study for the teacher pay?
We're just finishing up the law enforcement, and then we will move on to teachers.
So you did law enforcement first. So you're finishing up. What does that mean?
I have a draft of which I've commented and sent back to staff.
All right. And is that, would these budgets that we have in this bill be able to cover any increase in salaries for the law enforcement as recommended by your study?
For law enforcement, we believe yes. We haven't done the teachers yet, so
in
we
the
don't
existing
know.
budgets?
Yes.
Or the proposal today's proposal?
Yes.
Okay. And last time we talked about the last budget bill, we talked about DISID, the Division of Voc Rehab, wanted to open a southern daycare, but I don't see that on your list of things that was addressed by this new bill. Is that one of the things that is also included? Are we going to be able to open that southern daycare?
I don't believe that was specifically included. I think we're going off of the shortfall that they had, but that new program I think would remain unfunded.
Yeah, so it looks like you just brought it up to the operations, kind of
Yes,
status quo operations, so none of their new plans are going to be funded. They said they had 141 current people in there and that they needed expansion. 250,000 for that adult day care for the southern villages. All right, and then just going to make sure about COLA, we heard from OFB last time that according to retirement fund, they said the amount is sufficient, but now you've had more time to confirm. Is this amount going to be sufficient for the COLA? I'm asking you, BBMR.
When Mr. Guerrero was talking about a more recent conversation with GGRF, and he got updated information, I would agree with Mr. Guerrero.
All right, so you didn't double check that?
No, I did not.
Okay, and then the residential treatment fund, is that restored? Because it doesn't look like according to your list.
Yeah, we appreciate the consideration for the increase, but we also believe that the funding level will probably be insufficient.
Okay, so that was a $700,000, looks like. What happens to those people?
We just accumulate, costs that we're going to probably have to, at some point in time, either include in the prior year obligation cost or come back before the body for an adjustment.
All right. That sounds troubling. Can I just ask you one question here?
So I think we know where that's all going, right? I mean, just this whole BPT thing is just ridiculous. The Republicans and now, apparently now with the support of Adeloop are pushing, and it's because of the sacrifice in critical services, right? There was a comment that I want to address, and it's by Bert Javier, and I want to clarify. I think he'll be happy to know because he's saying that 95% of registered businesses are small businesses. So a rollback would really help with small businesses. Actually, Bert, the good news is, and this is to the credit of Governor Lulian Guerrero and the former Democrat majority in the legislature. I think this was back in I want to say the 35th or the 36th Guam legislature. The BPT for more than 90% of businesses in Guam was rolled back to its lowest point, and that's to 3%. So what they're considering now, Bert or Mr. Javier, is a rollback to 4% from 4.5%, and it was at 5% last year. And it was rolled back to 4.5% last year, and now they want to roll it to 4% this year, and it's for the remaining less than 10% of companies in this island, including companies that are not even from Guam, but are making a ton of money from the military buildup in Guam, and which is like a big contention here. So anyway, Mr. Javier, I just want to assure you that this rollback, it doesn't affect small businesses because small businesses already are paying at the lowest rate ever, and that's at 3%. When we come back from the other side of the commercial break, I'll bring you my favorite part of today's show, and that is my interview that I had Friday with Anthony Cruz from Off the Spectrum about, what it's like to be the father of a 4-year-old boy who is on the autism spectrum, and what it is that we who do not have this experience can do to become better educated, more aware, and how we can help this community to raise awareness. Stick with us. We'll get to that on the other side of the commercial break.
You asked, we delivered. Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
Hi, Anthony Cruz. Good afternoon.
What's up, Troy? Buenas, Kandit News. Which way do I look? Do I look at the camera?
You can look at both. You can look at our audience. You can look at me. Yeah,
excellent.
You choose.
Perfect.
My first question is, tell me about your journey as a parent of a son, right? You're a father of a son who lives with a type of disability.
Well, my son's name is Antonius. He's 4 years old. And I must admit, if we're talking about kind of the roots of my journey as a parent of a child with autism, I think in the beginning, we all kind of go through a little bit of a denial phase, right? We see the signs, but we want to, obviously for our children, we always want to believe in the absolute best. And for myself, I was like, no, maybe he'll grow out of certain tendencies. And then not to compare my child to others, but then when I would see him with others, I would say, my boy is a little bit different. And it kind of came to a point where I very much, we got him evaluated and tested through, what do they call it? GDOE and TZEN, right? The SPED program. They definitely did their due diligence in working with Antonius. And I think I came through a very much an acceptance process, and very much Antonius is the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to my life. Very much has made me a much more patient and understanding person, because those are definitely qualities that I was super weak in before I became a parent. So I would say being a parent, it's definitely a process in terms of evolving as a person, because you have somebody that even though my son may not communicate as much as other kids, I know he looks up to me. I know he sees my patterns, he sees my behavior, and I try to be the best I can be for him. I know I have a lot to improve, but I try my best.
How old is he?
Tonius, he's 4.
4, okay. Is he in the school system yet?
So my son goes, man, he goes to an awesome, shout out to Tender Shepherd. Tender Shepherd's great. They're so awesome. Miss Jess, Miss Apple, all the teachers at Tender Shepherd, they do a great job of working with my son. He's probably done some things that like could have gotten him in like different results with some other places. Cause you know, I think one thing with autism, like some children with autism, they have things where like they pinch people or like they bite, right? They don't mean to do that, I think, in like a
and this is some
aggressive way.
This is some of the children with
At least
autism.
my son has, you know, he's pinched kids before, he's bit kids before, and then, you know, of course, as a parent, I'm so concerned about the other kid. But everyone at Tender Shepherd is super understanding of my son and super accommodating. So if we're talking about the school system, I really do want to give my my shout out to Tender Shepherd. They're great, man.
Do you have any concerns about, because I'm assuming that next year he'll be going into, and I'm going to assume the public school system because the private schools don't necessarily have services for children with autism, right? Would that be correct?
That's a great question, Troy. I would say in terms of the knowledge of the scope of services on Guam, I could improve my knowledge in this regard, but I would say I'm looking into maybe like something like Mount Carmel. I know they're a charter school, and I believe certain charter schools do have programs for children with certain...
I did not know that.
Certain circumstances. I believe so. I'm going to have to... Don't call me on that, Mount Carmel. Don't kill me now. But of course, I live in the village of Haget. So my son is, literally right down the street is Mount Carmel. It's a great school. I do jiu-jitsu. They have a jiu-jitsu program there. So if there's any school I would think of sending my boy, it is Mount Carmel. But I know the public school system does have some resources. Is that correct?
They have a special education department. And they've been at this for a while. So.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns about when he goes to school at Mount Carmel or wherever it might be?
Do I have concerns? Well, I would say the livelihood of a child is very much dependent on what goes on at home. A large part, right? But of course, their time at school and what they're experiencing at school is so important. Very much, for me, my concern is, oh my gosh, because my son isn't completely verbal, he does communicate at times, and he does, like, dude, if you give my son like some flashcards, freaking, he'll recite it all out. I'm like, yo, dog, like, he knows like all the different kinds of birds. I'm like, bro, I didn't even know what that is. But in terms of communicating directly, right now it's very difficult. So for me, my concern would be him making friends. I think as parents, we all want our children to be happy. We want our children to be happy. We want our children to be respected. And as a parent of a child with autism, that is something that I'm concerned about. Not necessarily the school system, because you can only focus on what you can control, truthfully. I don't try to stress about what I can't. But in terms of like just my son not getting bullied and just being respected, those are my concerns. So, obviously parents out there, if you have children that aren't on the spectrum, the bare minimum you can do to spread awareness is just have a conversation with your kids, right? Have a conversation with your children and say, hey, maybe there's going to be someone that isn't talking, or maybe there's going to be someone that acts different. And I think as a parent of a child that's not on the spectrum, I think you can very much promote autism awareness and play a role in that regard.
Do you think that in Guam there has been a much more heightened level of awareness of children who have autism or other types of developmental or physical disabilities, and how society can be better at treating them? Do you think that's improved here?
Do I think it's improved? Sure. I mean, when it comes to autism, actually, my connection to autism goes far beyond even my child. I have some immediate family members who their children has autism. So, I've seen it even before, but just because you see something doesn't mean you understand. And I didn't understand what some of my family members with children of autism were going through as parents. I didn't put myself in that situation. I wasn't mature enough to have that reflective perspective in terms of how they live, and when it came my time, and now, but man, I love my child more than anything. So as much as there's challenges, on the flip side of that, it's amazing. Fatherhood is incredible. So you get two sides of the spectrum. Nothing worthwhile is easy.
How can we improve awareness then? How can we improve
How can we improve awareness? I think that takes something in terms of like a cultural shift of people raising their awareness in terms of, I think, education. I think direct communication in the school system could play a difference.
Okay.
I think direct communication. I think obviously when there's teachers, and this is not to criticize teachers, but if there's ever like people in the school system that are leaders, the minimum they can do is communicate to the children. Children are very innocent, right? They don't know. So if they're like 4 years old and there's a kid that's not talking, they're gonna keep trying to talking to them. They're gonna be like, why isn't this kid talking? But obviously I think if there's a more direct type of message sent from the leadership to the student body, I think that can make very much a difference. It takes each and every one of us,
Well, to that end, how about us, the adults? We're the ones who are a little more set in our ways than children are. To a degree, we're the ones who are ignorant.
What can adults do?
Or how can we adults be?
How can we partake in autism awareness? That's a great question, Troy. I think we can all do our part. I mean, if we're a parent, like I mentioned earlier, if you're a parent, spreading that knowledge and that message with your children, even if they aren't on the spectrum, right? I think even if you aren't someone with a child, or let's say you're a single guy. I mean, before I was in that position, I didn't have children. I think for me, because I've seen it in my family, I've kind of learned not to judge and not to place judgment on these types of individuals. They didn't choose to be autistic, right? They didn't choose that route. They definitely were given these circumstances. So I think a certain amount of empathy given from adults throughout the whole community is absolutely important.
I'm going to posit an angle to you, and you give me your reaction to this, okay?
Sure.
That the rally remarks that outraged quite a few people, right, on our island about, the jokes that were made about special education students. Was it a blessing in disguise?
For sure. I mean, I think in life you should always try to take the bad and make the most of it. And prior to that, anyone who follows me on Instagram on like my personal jiu-jitsu page, I don't really get on and talk too much. If you meet me in person, that's different. Anyone who meets me in person knows we're gonna talk. I can talk. But in front of a camera, hell no. I'm not trying to have myself be out there for criticism, but after a certain point, in order to go where you've never been, you have to do things you've never done. And I think I needed to use that event as a kind of like a tipping point for me to realize I need to be a little bit more outspoken about these things in terms of making my community a better place, our community a better place for children on the spectrum, and obviously personal to me because of my child.
Are there chat groups that you're in, or messaging groups that you're in, where you're able to see what other people thought, and did other parents of children on the spectrum, did they feel that was a moment that was a blessing in disguise for this movement?
Oh, for sure. I think, I don't know if they considered it a blessing. I know that they definitely had a certain amount of rage and discontent with the comments that were made. And once again, I'll reiterate, I have no political interest. I have no intent to support one party over another. I simply am making a reference to the comments that were made. It could have been at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and I love jiu-jitsu. It could have been a jiu-jitsu tournament, and I would have been pissed. I would have been like, dude, what? I would have done jiu-jitsu, but in jiu-jitsu there's no striking, so just jiu-jitsu. But of course, I think the children with the parents of the children with autism, they were upset. We have a group chat led by Josephine Blas from ACT, which is Autism Community Together. And definitely the parents were pissed. They were pissed. And I felt like, oh man, I'm upset about this. All these people are upset about this. And we're all kind of bonded by a certain circumstance that if you're not in it, you don't understand it. You can see it, you can feel it, but you don't understand until you're actually in it. And the parents were very upset, and I was on board with them.
How did it feel then to this point, right? That you don't, that's the thinking, right? You don't understand it unless you're in it. How did it feel then to you guys when you saw so many adults who probably are not in it? They don't have children with autism, but they were coming out and they were just as upset as you guys were, it seemed. And they were defending children. They were saying nice things. They were saying, you just don't say things like that. And how did it make you guys feel to see all of that?
I can't speak for other people, but for myself, it's crazy because after I posted that video, I took my son to Playworks at the mall. Son loves that place. Shout out Playworks. My son loves that place. We went to Playworks and freaking, I think he may have like pinched another kid, and like obviously like for me, I'm like, you know, I feel so like, no, genuinely I'm so uncomfortable because I'm like, I feel so bad for the other kid. Like I know my son's not a bad kid. I know he's like the best. He's such a happy kid, my son. But when he pinches, like sometimes I think he's just trying to communicate. And of course I was a little uncomfortable. It was interesting. It felt like there was like, oh no, that's fine. That's like the parent of the other child was super understanding, like to the point where she felt bad that I felt bad. I'm like, don't, like she was really reassuring. So obviously I think looking at things from a positive perspective, that event did generate much more awareness. Of course, we don't like to hear those types of things, but I would say using negative circumstances and making the most of it.
Maybe it could be a tipping point, right?
Exactly. I think, you know, it's funny. I have real quick, guys, if you didn't know, we have a island, a length of the island walk all the way from freaking Jigo to Molesso Pier. And one of my business partners, man, he's awesome. His name is Isaac, and Isaac Doinas, he's part of Off the Spectrum, and man, he's super supportive of the autism message. And he was even telling me that like sometimes in business, right, there's negative things that happen and you make the most of it and you turn it into a positive, you flip it around. And I think these are one of those situations where this principle is in play.
And that's what this interview is, right? It's the coverage that we're giving this issue, it's to continue the positive momentum here, right? What more can we do as a community to continue this positive momentum?
What more can we collectively do as a community? I think we have leaders. We have leaders that are elected, you know, for example, political representatives. Of course, they can utilize their status and their position to create more awareness and to possibly bring further resources to the community of children on the spectrum, right? And adults as well too, because of course, children on the spectrum eventually become adults, and these adults need to find their place in the workplace, which adds to the element of the economy. Right, so from my very simple understanding, I can imagine that's something that should happen with the political officials. In terms of the community, though, you don't need to be an elected official to be a leader. You know, if you're a father, if you're a parent, if you're anybody, you can be a leader. You know, you don't need to be in a position of power to be a leader. And I think you can take the stance of defending those who can't defend themselves. You know, I think that's where my motivation comes from. Troy, I mean, we were just talking before the recording. You know, I'm not a perfect person by any means whatsoever, but for this cause and for my son, man, I will do my best to speak out and, you know, be a voice of those who can't speak for themselves at the moment.
Do you, ever think about when your son is an adult? You know, what his life might be like. Is he going to be at a point where he is autonomous? He can go and he can drive and get a job and be saturated in society as you remember things to be when you were young?
That's a great question, Troy. I would say, in terms of focusing on what I can control, I personally have certain, business endeavors that I very much dedicate my life to, so that I can create more opportunities for my child, right? And I can have more ability to be there for him, right? If you're a business owner, obviously, like, once you get the business going, it does kind of allow you to step back and be more in charge of your time. So that's what I would love for, is to be able to be there physically for my child, physically present, and not have to worry about, I'm missing work or I'm not making enough money, right? I would want to be in a position where I could take care of my child financially, with resources, but also being physically present. See, because I think if you have a child on the spectrum, you do realize that your physical presence is invaluable. There's no price tag that you can put to that. Being a child on the spectrum does, I think, require their parents to be around much more. So that's all I could ask for, really.
Aside from yourself and the, what's the name of his daycare? I'm sorry?
Tender Shepherd.
Aside from you and the folks over at Tender Shepherd, does your son have any other support system? Do you have any other support system in raising him?
Oh, for sure, man. It takes a village to raise a child, right? I mean, my parents are super big in taking care of, supporting my son. My son's mother's parents, my son's mom, obviously, right? So, I mean, my child, he's got all kinds of people rooting for him. Like, my family's huge as well. Like, my Cruz family is so big. So, of course, they support my child. And let me tell you what, bro, even if no one was supporting my child, I got my boys back. So, we don't got to worry too much.
But it's got to be something nice that they're there as well.
For sure.
Have they learned more about him? And
I would say so. I would say anyone who's been impacted by a child on the spectrum, you have no choice but to evolve. If you have, good values, right? You have no choice but to evolve, because you gotta heighten your level of patience. You gotta heighten your level of observation, because it's different. Like, if I talk to my child, right? Like, for example, when I pick my boy up from school and I ask him, how's his day? He can't really communicate at that time. So understanding my child's inner state is very much a skill based on observation and a little bit of parental instinct. So I would say that's one thing that's maybe one of the biggest things that people impacted by children on the spectrum experience, is learning how to communicate and to observe children on the spectrum, to be more aware of their internal state, because obviously they can't communicate verbally, some of them, right? Some children of autism very much are completely verbal, right? And I think some develop verbal skills over time.
My nephew, my brother's son, he is extremely verbal, and I think that's part of his autistic tendencies. Is his talking is like, it's a lot. And so when he gets in the car with me, it's from the moment he gets in to the moment he gets out, he's talking, and he's got something to say about everything. And I love it. I'm all for it.
He talks a lot.
Yes, and I try to keep up. He's very smart. So let's talk about off the spectrum. Is your group willing? Well, first tell us about what off the spectrum is, and then my question is your group willing to take on advocacy and awareness for issues like a better situation and a better system of one-to-one aids in the public school system?
Wow, that is a great question. That latter part, I would say for us as a company, overall, our mission is to increase awareness and to increase the amount of people to elevate their level of knowledge of children on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum, and just to make Guam a better place where every mind belongs. That's our company slogan, right? That's our company slogan. That's our mission statement. That's our purpose, is to make it Guam a place where every mind belongs, where every person, whether you're a parent of a child of autism, because I'll give you an example, Troy, just don't mean to veer too much off topic, but being a parent of a child of autism, sometimes like my boy, like I was talking about play works, he might pin someone, or sometimes he does this thing called stimming where like he just like moves around, he's having so much fun, you know, he's letting out that pent up energy to a certain extent. So sometimes I've seen that where like people like look at my son and I'm like, you know, obviously as a parent, like, dude, I can get upset. I don't want to get upset. You know, I think if they increase their level of awareness and understanding, of course, when you change your perspective, it changes the way you view things, right? So changing the perspective of the masses here on the community. And I think our company very much, that's our mission. In terms of the latter part of your question involving the public school system, one-to-one aids, I hope that the public school system can very much provide the resources that these children and anyone on the spectrum needs, truly. I really very much hope that. But, you know, those are elements that I can't control per se. I can advocate for them. I can push for them. But I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm going to try my best to be, you know, a best dad I can be for my child at home, and I do my best on my end.
Do you feel like your voice is helping though?
Do I feel like my voice is helping? I don't know. Is my voice annoying, guys?
No,
I don't know.
Annoying.
It's so funny, you know, people are like, I always meet people not to, guys, hold up. You know, Troy, there's a lot of people that are like, hey, Anthony, you should be on the radio. And I was like, why? I'm not good enough for TV. I'm not good looking enough for TV. You know, just the voice. We just want to hear your voice. Do I feel my voice is helping? I can only hope so. You know, I can only hope so. That's an element that I can't control, you know. On social media, obviously you can do your part by sharing your friends' stories. Like, for example, like if your friend starts a business, you can shout them out, right? You can like their stuff, you can comment. And I think since social media is so relevant on the island, I think in society in general, obviously, using my voice on a platform very much I hope does help. I very much hope does help. But if not, even if it changes the perspective of a handful of people, man, that's great by me, you know, because it's very much a ripple effect, right? You impact one person and that one person could have the ability to impact others, right? So it all starts with us as individuals, as a community. I wouldn't say I'm some kind of front runner or advocate for this. I'll do my best, but it takes the island as a whole.
How can people, volunteer, and businesses support Off the Spectrum?
Man, that's funny that you mentioned that, Troy, because it's crazy, and this is not to like slander any local businesses. You guys are awesome, but we've been really working hard, so even before the viral video with the political rally thing that happened, right? Even before that video, my business partners and I have been trying to organize an autism awareness event. We've been trying very much for some time. We've reached out to numerous companies, and you know, we haven't really gotten that support that we initially anticipated with this cause, right? And that's understandable in this economy, and businesses, they need to know where their money's going, and sometimes these causes aren't at the top of their list when it comes to expenses, right? But initially we were thinking of doing kind of like a fair, and we still want to do it. We want to have like a fair, like at the Phoenix Center, for example, like an outside thing with slides and stuff for the kids,
cool,
where they could play.
Very
then
cool.
in the inside, we want to do kind of like a little bit like an award ceremony to recognize people in the autism community that really make a difference. And also we can even make it kind of like intimate, where like, you know, we can interview a parent with autism and they can talk about their experiences, because obviously when you hear someone speaking from their personal experience, you can empathize with those things more. It's one thing to use the term autism awareness. It's another thing to listen to an individual speak about their experience experiences, right? That really could hit home in a different way. And we want to do something like that, but we didn't receive as much support initially as we anticipated. And then, of course, from a business perspective, we transitioned to having the island-wide walk. And we think it's even better because it's like, dude, we're going to be live streaming this thing, Troy. We got Alter Ego. Shout out Ben, Alter Ego. We got our boy Darian. He's working with a business called DC Smart Ops. And they're creating an awesome platform where it's going to be a really great live stream. It's going to be a very like interactive type website where you can see how much money we've generated from the live stream, from the sale of merchandise. On this website, we'll be able to sell merchandise as well, with of course proceeds to go to ACT, Autism Communities Together, right? So just speaking a little bit on Off the Spectrum, that's a little bit about our company and our vision.
Well, I think you answered. Well, I think we need more details. The walk.
The walk.
Tell our audience more about the walk.
My bad, guys. Sometimes my mind just jumps all over the place, you know. And the walk, guys, it's a length of the island walk. So we're going from GDOE, the front of Anderson Air Force Base, down to Molesso Pier. Right? So we're looking, Google Maps says we'll get it done in like 12 and a half hours, but it might be faster, might take a little longer. Down at Molesso Pier, we got to check on the physical surroundings. Shout out to Franklin Champaco, the mayor. He's been super supportive of what we're doing. We got to see the circumstances because I heard like this bird thing that's going on in Molesso. The birds.
There's a bird.
And listen, we're not trying to have we're not trying to have everyone being, inconvenienced by the birds.
Just bring umbrellas.
We might need to, see our options down to Molesso in terms of a location, right? But no doubt, Mayor Franklin Champaco from Molesso, man, he's been awesome in supporting us. We're walking the length of the island, guys.
What day?
September 5th. We're estimated to start at midnight.
Okay.
Maybe some delays. We're scheduled to arrive in Molesso around like 2 to 3 p.m., right? Okay. We're probably gonna have little stops here and there. Stay tuned, guys. We're gonna have a list of checkpoints that we're gonna have. People are gonna be able to donate on the live stream online.
In support of ACT.
In support of ACT. However, what we'll be able to do as well is create physical checkpoints as the walkers pass them. We'll make it kind of like a water station along with a physical checkpoint where people can rally. Like imagine people can go to the checkpoint. Like imagine it's in your village. Woo! Woo.
And you can
donate
then there.
You can physically donate cash, right? Because I'm be lie, some people prefer to use cash, right?
Can you join the walk from that checkpoint and walk to the next point, or like how does that work? Who walks?
So that's a great question. So we have a whole group of, I think there's 20 of us right now, completely committed to walking the whole thing. So we got about 20 people. We have about 30 people that have volunteered to be part of it, to help in any way.
That's amazing.
Shout out to everyone who's really supported. Like, I'm so surprised. Like, I was like talking to my business partner. I was like, man, hopefully we can get like 5-6 people to help out. But we have 30 people. So it's a beautiful thing to see. We have, like I said, 20 people walking the whole distance. And if you want to partake, but you don't want to walk the whole distance, that's not a problem at all. We'll be able to create a system where, they can work through us to sign up just for a portion.
Yeah.
A portion of the proceeds go to ACT. And just remember, also too, guys, if you want to do a relay, you can very much make that possible. We have one of the people in my jiu-jitsu community, her name is Rose. Rose already has I think 6-7 people signed up with her to do like a relay. So we're gonna definitely create an online experience where they can sign up and they can register. Our guy Darian from DC Smart Ops is definitely finalizing some stuff with the website, and we'll be ready to rock.
So there will be an off the spectrum website or website just for the walk?
Oh no, it's gonna be collectively into one. It's gonna be collectively into one. So
off the spectrum.
Yes,
Okay.
we should be looking at 3 different platforms for the live stream. We should be looking at an IG platform, a Facebook platform, and a YouTube platform. And it's really cool because Ben from Alter Ego, he's like doing something where we have like somebody holding an iPhone, which is like a more intimate experience to follow the live stream. We have the professional setup where we have the high quality camera and everything following us. And then we're gonna make it very interactive. We wanna do like little interviews during the live stream, right? Maybe like a live phone call with somebody. So we wanna make it more, obviously no one is gonna watch us walking for 16 hours. Woo, 16 hours like, woo! No one is gonna watch for that amount, but we want to make it interactive. We're actually gonna do like a little raffle.
Okay.
We have certain prizes that we have available, so there'll be like a raffle on the live stream. You have to tune in at certain times to partake in that raffle, just in case your number gets called.
Okay.
So we want to incentivize people to make it a very interactive experience. And obviously, if it's a live stream, we want to make it enjoyable. We want to make it enjoyable. We want to make it all about raising awareness, and we want people to really tune in.
When can we get information about the website and how we can sign up and all that stuff?
Man, guys, it's as easy as following us on Instagram at Off the Spectrum Guam. You guys can contact me directly. I'm not ashamed to give my phone number. Everyone, has got my phone number at this point, 671-777-8188. You guys can contact me directly for more information, but follow us on Off the Spectrum Guam.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in to listen to this point. You're probably a rare breed because I wouldn't have the attention span to listen to me talk this long. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, please follow us on Off the Spectrum Guam. Keep up with us as we partake in. We hope to make it, Troy, a historical event to the point where this becomes an annual thing. Right? We hope that we can turn this not into just some one-off event that's, hey, cool, we walked the island, great. We want to use this as a kind of a jumping point to really do more things for the autism community. For example, I heard over the weekend there was this, what was that, Troy? There was some bougie event over the weekend, the pink ball?
Oh, yes.
Red ball?
The pink ball.
Pink ball, which is a freaking wonderful thing. Who says we can't have like an autism ball, right? Where obviously we can get, make it like a very intimate event. So we really hope to use social media and use physical events to really raise more awareness, and that everyone shows a little more understanding and empathy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.